I was halfway through repairing a ranch trailer when an unfamiliar white Mercedes rolled into my workshop. The woman behind the wheel stepped out like she owned the place and demanded I secure her SUV because it was evidence against me. Jack calmly asked who had authorized her park inside his private workshop. Linda smirked, claiming the HOA had the right to investigate property violations, even though the ranch was well outside the HOA's jurisdiction. Linda ordered Jack not to touch the SUV, insisting it contained critical evidence. Jack noticed she couldn't explain what the evidence actually was, and her confidence began to crack. After Linda stormed outside to make several phone calls, Jack noticed the SUV was blocking access to expensive fabrication equipment. Every minute it stayed there delayed customer projects and cost him valuable work time. Jack checked every entrance and confirmed the workshop was his private property. Since the SUV had been left there without permission, he decided to secure the work area until the situation was resolved. Using square steel tubing already prepared for another project, Jack began assembling a sturdy protective cage around the parked SUV. Curious ranch employees watched quietly as the unusual project took shape. Hours later, the metal enclosure completely surrounded the Mercedes without causing any damage to it. Jack stepped back, satisfied that the vehicle was now safely contained until its owner returned. Linda rushed back into the workshop and froze in disbelief. She stared at the steel enclosure around her Mercedes before demanding that Jack remove it immediately. Jack calmly explained that the cage protected equipment and clearly marked the unauthorized vehicle until the ownership issue could be resolved. Linda's raised voice echoed through the workshop, attracting nearby ranch workers. As more people gathered to watch, Jack quietly reminded Linda that respect for private property worked both ways. The unexpected standoff had only just begun, and everyone sensed the story was far from over. Linda immediately called the county sheriff, convinced they would force Jack to remove the steel enclosure. Jack simply returned to organizing his tools, confident he had stayed within the law on his own property. Within minutes, 2 sheriff's deputies arrived and carefully listened to both sides of the disagreement. Instead of rushing conclusions, they asked each person to explain exactly what had happened. The deputies inspected the workshop and confirmed the Mercedes had been parked on Jack's private property without his permission. Linda's confident expression slowly faded as the conversation continued. One deputy politely asked Jack why he had built the enclosure. Jack explained it prevented accidental movement around active welding equipment while keeping the unattended vehicle secure. The deputies examined the steel frame and noticed it never touched the SUV. Everything had been carefully measured to leave safe clearance around the vehicle. One deputy reminded everyone that civil disagreements should remain peaceful and respectful. The focus shifted toward finding a practical solution instead of creating more conflict. Linda insisted the enclosure be removed immediately, but the deputies explained that resolving the property dispute would require cooperation rather than demands. Jack remained calm and listened carefully. A local towing company was contacted to discuss possible options. Everyone agreed that the vehicle should eventually leave the workshop safely without damaging either the SUV or the steel structure. The tow operator carefully examined the situation and admitted he had never seen anything quite like it. Even he smiled at the unusual engineering behind the sturdy steel enclosure. As the afternoon came to an end, everyone realized the disagreement was bigger than a single parked SUV. Linda finally understood that private property rights apply to everyone, setting the stage for what would happen next. The tow operator explained that moving the SUV wasn't as simple as hooking it up and driving away. The custom steel enclosure would have to be opened safely before the vehicle could leave. Jack calmly offered a simple solution. If Linda acknowledged she had entered and parked on private property without permission, he would begin removing the enclosure immediately. Linda hesitated for several long moments before lowering her voice. Realizing the deputies were watching, she finally admitted she should have asked permission before entering the workshop. Satisfied that the situation had cooled down, Jack grabbed his protective welding gear. Everyone stepped back as he prepared to carefully cut apart the steel enclosure. Bright sparks filled the workshop as Jack carefully removed one welded section at a time. His precision impressed everyone watching, especially the tow operator. Within an hour, the front section of the enclosure was removed without leaving a single mark on the Mercedes. The deputies complimented Jack for handling the entire situation professionally. The tow operator confirmed the SUV could now be driven out safely. Linda quietly climbed behind the wheel, noticeably calmer than when she had first arrived. Before leaving, Linda paused and thanked Jack for resolving the matter without damaging her vehicle. Jack simply nodded, reminding her that respect goes both ways. As the Mercedes disappeared down the gravel road, the ranch returned to its usual quiet rhythm. Jack smiled, knowing the lesson had been learned without anyone getting hurt. The next morning, Jack unlocked his workshop and got back to work as if nothing had happened. Around town, however, people were still talking about the day a steel cage turned an argument into an unforgettable lesson about respecting private property. If you enjoyed today's HOA story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unbelievable HOA showdown.